What's going on, traders, and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Watchlist. Alrighty, I hope you like that new intro animation. I did get a new setup for the holidays, so hoping that was exciting. Also, the microphone and screen aspect ratio are still getting figured out, so bear with me on that. This video, as always, is going to be a technical analysis and a place where I give you some of my thoughts on the tickers here on the left. As always, we have the broad market comprised of SPY, the Qs, and IWM. After that, we're going to look at some companies. We have Apple, Netflix, Tesla, Alibaba, Facebook, Nvidia, Microsoft, and Amazon. Real quick, if you're interested in receiving 5 to 10 swing trade ideas per week for free, then go ahead and sign up at the first link in the description. You can go over there and put your email in, and we'll send those out to you on Sunday afternoons. If you're subscribed to the channel, you will notice that on New Year's Day, we'll probably post a recap of the scans we've sent out in 2019, highlighting a few of the best winners, a few of the best losers, just that way we have a fair assessment of what was sent out. Also, we're on Instagram if you want to follow us there for a daily scan in the morning and some tidbit of technical information in the afternoon. That's at tradebrigade.co on Instagram. And lastly, if you're interested in talking to me and other traders in real time during market hours, then go ahead and sign up for our Discord or just join us in there. We'd love to chat stocks and see what we can all contribute. Without further ado, let's get into the analysis. Jumping right into the SPY weekly chart, you can see we have a smaller bodied candle here, which is no surprise considering it was a holiday week, especially if we look down here at the bottom volume. You can see it's very, very insignificant compared to the weeks prior. This one was kind of a low volume week there also, but very, very small volume compared to what we were having. We do have a small little tail on top there, noting some resistance above there at our all-time high now at 323.80. That's weird to say. I remember when we were still in the 200s. But dropping down to the daily, you can see Friday's action is the reason for that little tail there. We had a nice gap up, and then we filled the gap all day and bounced sort of midway of our day there on Thursday. So something to keep in mind that we might see some more consolidation here at new all-time highs. Obviously, the market is lacking in volume, so it's very choppy. I wouldn't really put a ton of emphasis on the movement that we had over the past 4 days in the holiday week. We're going to have another one of those coming up with New Year's. So just something to keep in mind is that, we might just chop around. There's not a lot of volume in the market right now, and that's to be expected. Some levels to keep in mind on the upside is whole and half dollars into blue sky territories as always. On the downside, though, we do have our supports mapped out for us. We have 321.97, so 322 just about, which is the high of this indecision candle that we had here. Anything lower than that, we do want to see this little base that we formed here at 319.50 just about hold up. If that fails, then I would expect a nice flush all the way down to here at 315.50. Our 50 SMA is starting to catch up, but still quite a ways away. As the time passes and we head into 2020, that will start to move in the upwards direction again, sort of following the trajectory it's on. Might provide a nice little super support here should there be any sort of major correction to the downside. There are still gaps in the chart that we have talked about. Gap here still remains. Gap here is partially filled, as you can see by the lower shadow of this candle here. Big gap in the chart still over here. This one still hasn't filled here, so plenty of gaps to go around. Those will all be noted in the newsletter that gets sent out. So the Q is very similar. We do have our 211.35 level happening a little bit sooner than on SPY. So if we do break down from here and see continued pullback or consolidation, we really want to see prices remain above this level at 211. That would be a positive sign. Some consolidation here and then a nice strong start into the new year would be a good thing. If we do go lower though, we have our supports mapped out, 206 just about, you can see here, and then price got sort of within the range there, rejected as resistance once we were above, turned into support with the lower tail of this candle here, and then we were able to continue on in the upwards direction. So keep that an eye out for that level there. Anything really, really further down below that, we are going to run into our 50 SMA and then this level here at $200.63. On the upside, as always, whole and half dollars and prominent intraday levels that form as blue sky territories develop. So we cleaned up the IWM chart, as did we with all of these really, but it's much easier to look at now. You can see clearly we had our nice bull run, consolidation in between our resistance zone in here, and then from there we were able to continue on in the upwards direction. Big sell-off there on Friday, just some money coming out of the small caps and IWM reflecting that. We do want to see if we see continued pullback, further than this. Actually, it's actually kind of nice. Didn't even notice that intraday, but we do have a support level from this tail of this hammer coinciding perfectly with the low on Friday. So if that gives and we see continued pullback into next week, obviously we have our level here at 164.85. That's a key resistance level that is now support. Now that we're above it, you can see the tail there acted as support. If that one gives, then we have quite a ways to come all the way back down here to 162.33. That is a very key support. As you can see, this is sort of where we bottomed out. Nice little U shape, and then a big breakout there on whatever day this was, 12/12. So keep that in mind. If we break down below it, then there is a gap to fill here. So that is one important thing to note. The gap fill happens to the high of this candle, which happens at 161.65. Alrighty, if you're enjoying the analysis so far, be sure to leave the video a thumbs up. I would certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure the YouTube algorithm would as well. Also, what are you doing? Subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content. These videos come out every Sunday to give you an edge for the trading week ahead. Without further ado, let's hop into Apple. Quite a week, even though we are on lower volume. You can see that we are continuing to advance. We broke out of our little consolidation here. If I zoom in a bit, you can see we had a couple of days of balance, and then boom, when we broke out, made a nice move to the upside after we confirmed it as support. You can see by the little tail of this candle. So nice range expansion here. We are seeing some pullback and some consolidation as we keep continuing into blue sky territories. New resistance up here at all-time high. That is right around 293.97, somewhere in that zone, close enough. It'll just be a nice reminder as we approach that level. Anything that this candle would sort of indicate to me is that we do want to see some more consolidation after this expansion, just based on the fact that there are some sellers hanging out up here. Obviously, price wasn't really accepted in this range, pushed prices lower throughout the day. So I would watch for some consolidation and sideways action. I'm not saying that we're going to come all the way back down and test 282.65. It's certainly a possibility, but that is an area of support that we could keep in mind should we see any sort of more aggressive pullback rather than sideways consolidation. On the upside, as always, into blue sky territories, it's $1.50 and any intraday levels that form as prominent support and resistance. Netflix, this was one that we called out in the group chat. So if you took part in the short here, this was on Monday morning, actually. So if you took a nice put play here at resistance and after a nice overextended move, then boom, congrats to you. That was a nice play, probably paid out quite nicely. We are finding some support now at the 200 SMA, which is about midway point between our support below and resistance above. So that's kind of cool to see. That's about 50% retracement on the move between these levels. Obviously, if you broke out the fibs, it's still much higher than that in terms of the move from here to here. So one thing to keep in mind is that this could be a bull flag, if you will. We have the pole and then the flag forms here. Any sort of breakout over some of these highs, if I draw in a resistance level, something that looks like this, any sort of breakout over something of that nature could potentially mean that we see another leg up in Netflix and a continuation up to our next resistance, which is all the way up here at 361.79. That's quite hopeful, though. We do have earnings right around the corner in January of 2020, so something to keep in mind as we continue. Obviously, earnings over the past couple times were very bearish, big gap down. This day, we had a gap up, but sold off all day. So things to keep in mind. Don't really want to gamble on that, but certainly do note that it is coming up. So Tesla, I always just tend to stay away from this one. I know it makes a lot of people money, and you might despise me for that, or knock my credit, but I just do not like the sporadic nature of it, and the spread on it is quite nasty. So sometimes, like I said, I just stay completely away, even though it's been on a very nice bull run here. You can see we are making new all-time highs almost every day, so that's something to watch out for. We have new resistance up here. Let's change the tool real quick. New resistance up here around 435.31, and again, that is our all-time high. Anything over that is $1.50 and intraday levels that form. I think we do have some sort of a double bottom happening here. If we zoom in just slightly more, support point there is a little double bottom, so if that fails, maybe there's a nice flush down to our next sort of area of contention where we have a few data points, if you will. I would call that area right here around 412, just based on resistance, then support, and then support again on this day. So that would be how I would play that should we get the breakdown of 426.26. Anything higher, though, we already covered that. Much lower and further away is 361 based on this high here and some resistance here. But again, I'm not sure that happens all within the course of the next week. Again, it's a short and choppy week. I wouldn't really be targeting any far away levels. Alibaba, again, just sort of following the whole market. The whole market's just sort of chugging higher. Friday was a bit of a down day, but that's no surprise after so many consecutive up days. We have a new all-time resistance up here at 218.11. mark that one in. Anything lower, and there's no real structure that's happening here. You could say that some levels like this are kind of important, where we had resistance over it and then acted as support the next day, support the next day. That's right around 213.14, so that could be a potential downside target should we see continuation into next week. Anything lower than that, and again, we're just sort of hunting for levels here. You can see that we have something in here where we had resistance, and then the next day it was kind of support at the open, didn't really get down much lower. Next day sort of got close to it, but again, this is what I mean by just market was grinding higher. There's no real clear structure like we had here where it was clear resistance, clear support. So on these types of moves, we're really just playing things that form intraday, where price levels seem to migrate to, and yeah, going from there. So Facebook is one of the few where I left these trend lines on there just because it's still staying within them to a very respectable degree. Obviously, we came up, had resistance at the upper end, support at the lower end, and I'm just really curious to see what's going to happen now that we're sort of at these all-time highs here at 208, 209 just about. So I'm leaving them up there. If we get the breakdown below, we are looking for a flush kind of back down to this level. If 205.39 gives, that's right around 204. You can see we had resistance all in here. It should act as support on any sort of retest from the top side down. So something to keep in mind there. Anything lower, our 50 SMA will start to continue up into this range, but really the next support below is at 195 based on some of these touches. Resistance, support, kind of a support zone in here, if you will, between here and 194. So keep that in mind on any sort of bigger flush. And as always, into blue sky territories, or rather not blue sky territories, but until our all-time high really up here at 218.09. It's probably not going to show. Yep, we're only on the year-long chart. So our all-time high is up here at 218, and that is a target on the upside should we break out of this and continue really on the upward trajectory. But again, this is sort of a rising wedge, a bearish pattern, if you will. We're at our recent swing high resistance. I wouldn't be surprised to see the break down. NVIDIA is forming a bit of a bull flag, again, very similar to what we were looking at on IWM and how that formed. We have a nice run up. Now we're consolidating and sort of going sideways here. If I take out the drawing tool, we can draw in sort of what this looks like. We have a resistance and a support line like that. When we break out to the upside, that is a bull flag continuation, in which case we're targeting our next resistance level up here at 248, 249 just about. Let's round up to that next whole dollar, even 250. The ultimate round number there. So keep that in mind on the upside. Anything to the downside, and we have some levels. Let me grab the right tool first. This level could certainly be seen as a previous resistance, now support, that we are above it because we had 1, 2, 3, even 4 little baby touches there to this level. That's at 228.85. Anything lower than that, and we have 223. Lower than that, 50 SMA will be catching up, and this very, very key level, which we have here at 211.39. Anything lower than that, uptrend is really not as intact as we would like it to be. So we're really banking on the fact that we have this bull flag, and we should see some consolidation in this zone and then maybe a breakout to the upside. Microsoft has been cleaned up a bit, but there are still some very important levels to be left on the chart. You can see all of these touches in here are still very important, so we're leaving those on. Very clear support and resistance in this zone, leaving those on, and our uptrend is still intact now that we are still above it. Obviously, new all-time high. We'll mark that in as resistance. That's at 159.55. Nailed it with the trend line, so that's a good thing to see. We do have a small gap left in the chart after this indecision candle. That gap fills here right around 155.77. The high of this green candle is 155.77. Nailed it. That's awesome. That's 2 nails on this same stock chart. So cool to see. We should see some sort of support if we do start to pull back a little bit before that. However, that's at 157.11. You can see based on this sort of pullback, found support, and then continued up before we saw this little pullback on Friday. So $1.50 into blue sky territories on the upside. Again, everything is mapped out for us on the downside. Amazon almost broke my heart. I did try to buy some puts right here on this day. I thought we were getting very overextended right at the 200 SMA on the daily chart, right at key resistance on the daily chart. I almost got filled on Amazon. Thank God I did not, because obviously it went on to rip for the rest of the day. We did get a small little first touch pullback, as we talk about in trade brigade mentality. First time, especially on an overextended move coming into these important levels, we do see a first initial reaction as backing off. So it would have made a little bit there, but obviously the major trend for the day was up with quite an aggressive green candle there, and then we consolidated and pulled back on Friday. No surprise, after such a massive update, people were taking profit, people were making money. We had a nice little spike in the morning and then sold off for the rest of the day. That being said, we came right into resistance at our very key level here. Let me see if I can nail it. Not quite. Right around $1,900. So we saw it here in the past, 1, 2, and now again, as we spiked right up into it, resistance there at $1,900. I'm looking for some sort of continued pullback after such a monstrous move. You can see the volume is really there. Even though it's a holiday week, the volume was there to support these crazy moves. If we see a pullback into this level here at 1850, just about to play a nice round number there, that could be a potentially buyable pullback. You know, we have a nice move to the upside, consolidation and pullback, and then boom, maybe we get another leg to the upside. That, again, could be a potential buy there. If it gets down even lower, we do have quite a cluster of support happening here. Previous resistance 1, 2, 3, all these touches in here should act as support on the coming from top down. Same thing here and here. So we are breaking out of this bull channel that we had. Something to keep in mind is, again, that we could see a nice little pullback and continuation to the upside. I think the holiday spirit certainly hit, online shopping certainly hit, and this was our reward here. Earnings kind of far away, happening on the 30th of January, so something to keep in mind. Again, slightly far away, but keep it in the back of your head. Alrighty, guys, that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Weekly Watchlist. Again, if you enjoyed it or learned anything during this 15-minute diatribe on the market, then go ahead and leave the video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And again, I think YouTube really likes it when people give videos thumbs up. Also, subscribe if you're interested in getting notifications whenever these videos come out. I do faithfully post the Weekly Watchlist every Sunday to give you a trading edge for the week ahead. With that, I wish you a green trading week, and do remember that the market is closed on the 1st to kick off 2020.